want to talk about the National Procurement Policy Statement. It's one of those where I think, I don't know that there's a lot of talk about it, which is interesting because it's a really interesting document. It's really fascinating, and according to the Procurement Act, public sector bodies have to have regard to it. Now, I'm not going to get into have regard to and what that means because I'm not a legal person and I don't care. If I'm being really, really honest, I don't care. People are arguing the semantics of the law. The law is not morality. I care on the basis of, actually, it's a really, really good and useful policy as it stands at the moment. It could be better. It could be a lot worse. But I do think it's got some really interesting stuff that's in here, and a lot of it is centred around that mindset shift that we want to hopefully be making, especially for those of us in the public sector or those trying to support the public sector, a shift away from how we've done things historically, which has been very process driven and process orientated, and moving to, and you'll have heard, mission led or mission driven. And so I think that we need to dispense with this idea of, well, do we have to or not have to, and what does with regard to mean? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, does it? If we think to the SME statement in the Act, it says we have to have regard to the barriers that are faced by SMEs and whether or not we can remove or reduce them. That means you could have regard to it, go, well, it's not going to apply for this, and just create a little justification and not do it. But is that the right thing to do? I think that we need to understand that having regard to something and what is the right thing to do might be two very different things. So let's talk about it from National Procurement Policy Statement point of view, because have regard to it, it's in the Act, but actually what in real life does this mean, and what should we be thinking about and should we be doing? I have props. I always have props. I print stuff out. I'm old school. It opens with a lot of big words that they're tried to make really clear and kind of make no sense. But what it means, they talk about what mission-driven government means. It just means that we're aiming for something a bit bigger and a bit better and a bit different, is what it kind of boils down to for me. You might read it as something else, and that's entirely fine. I'd love to hear what you guys read it as, but do put comments in the comments below. And also, while I'm thinking about it, like this video and subscribe it. My subscriber count has doubled, which sounds impressive until you realise I started with 5 and I now have 10. Hello 10 people who have subscribed. I'm really happy that you're here. If anybody else wants to subscribe, feel free to do that. I'm digressing, as I am wont to do. What does the statement say? It says a lot of stuff. It says a lot of really good stuff as well. It's talking about pushing power out to communities and harnessing new technologies, one aim in mind, to put the country back in the service of working people. That's a pretty big aim, isn't it? What does that mean in reality? Well, they start talking about this in the next sentence. Public procurement is a key lever in achieving government missions. Let that sink in for a sec. It's a key lever in achieving government missions. I wonder if we feel like it's a key lever sometimes. And again, we'll talk about investment in procurement. I will get there. If you see me looking down here, it's because I am literally reading from a printout. So there's a couple of bullet points that really kind of give a flavour of what it is. So kickstart economic growth, small businesses, social enterprises, high quality jobs, fair wages, innovation. Make Britain a clean energy superpower through accelerating to net zero, greenhouse gas emissions, taking account of environmental risks, etc. Take back our streets through reducing crime, encouraging suppliers to recruit from groups that struggle to access employment opportunities. Good stuff that we want to be doing. Break down barriers to opportunity by addressing specific skills gaps, removing barriers to entry for young people and underrepresented groups, and build a national health service fit for the future through supporting good physical and mental health, which is wonderful to say. We all know that there is an intrinsic link between physical health and mental health. That's all on page 1. Outlined the aims. What are we here to do? What are we trying to achieve? These are some pretty big goals. And I don't think anybody reading those goals would say, I disagree with them. In fact, I would argue that most organisations within the public sector, most contracting authorities, most buying authorities, most public bodies, those aims probably broadly align with your own organisational strategic goals. There will be some connective tissue, a golden thread, if you will, that connects those two together. So this is good to see. And it should do, because this was built on feedback from public sector professionals. They also state, and I highlighted this because this was important, The government will also update the sourcing playbook to introduce a new public interest test for contracting authorities to assess at the outset of a procurement process whether the work should be outsourced or if it could be done more effectively and drive better value for money in housing. It's a very interesting sentence, isn't it? Because outsourcing, that's where we're talking about working with suppliers and supply chains. Insourcing is where we're talking about doing it ourselves. And that's a really interesting shift recently, because there has been a bit of a move to outsourcing with a view that it's more cost effective. And we've seen areas where that's worked really, really well. And we never hear about them. And we've seen areas where that's worked really, really poorly. And we've heard phrases like PFIs, outsourcing of the NHS, things like that. So there's a lot of areas where when it goes wrong, we hear about it going wrong. So I suspect that's been introduced as part of that, which is just think about whether or not you do need to outsource this before you actually get to that point. And I think that's the right thing to do. We should be assessing whether or not it's better to do it in-house. The National Procurement Policy Statement should be read not just by procurement teams. I am fond of saying the Procurement Act. It's been a bit misnamed, hasn't it? It should be the anybody who's got anything to do with anything within the commercial space in the public sector or attached to the Public Sector Act of 2023. But I think that was too long to fit on the statute books, and therefore we have the Procurement Act and a redefinition of what procurement means, opening line of the Act. But it should be read not just by procurement teams, but by the strategic leadership and key decision makers in contracting authorities. Hey, CEOs, managing directors, that means you. You should be reading this, you should be understanding it. I'd like to remind you again, the very second paragraph within the National Procurement Policy Statement. Public procurement is a key lever in achieving the government's missions. So tie those two sentences together. You, CEOs, MDs, people in charge, you are responsible for ensuring that your procurement teams can operate as a key lever or lever, however you pronounce it, to achieving strategic goals. Change of mindset. Think of them as a key enabling team. They're not a function within your business. They actually should be driving a lot of what you do. Different rant video. And it connects it here through to section 13 of the Act as well. So this is where we're at. In terms of the scope of it, we know that it applies to contracting authorities, with the exception of private utilities who are pretty much exempt from everything in the Act. It begs the question why they're included in the first place. Any contracts awarded under a framework, Welsh, Scottish, Northern Irish devolved authorities, and it's anything that's exempt under Schedule 2. Nuances. These are nuances. By and large, this applies to most of the activities that the public sector will cover. Most. Not everything, there are exemptions as there are to everything, but most, it should apply to most things. Specifically, where it's stuff that is above a threshold limit, which is, not the highest volume, but the highest value stuff. So be mindful of that when you think about it. Duration and review. It came into effect same day as the Procurement Act, 24th of February 2025, and it stays in place until it is withdrawn, amended or replaced, and can be reviewed when a Minister of the Crown considers it appropriate to do so. Would love it if we could get a confirmed name for some of this stuff. Minister of the Crown. Who's that? I missed the part of the Procurement Act that says this is how you deliver procurement. I missed that because it doesn't. It doesn't tell you how you can do it. It gives you your must-dos and it gives you your do-nots. It does not tell you your this is what you can do. I saw a really funny meme on LinkedIn the other day, which was basically, it's the dead horse theory, which is, loads of different people from different functions talking about how you can make sure that we can continue riding, and none of them consider the fact that the horse is dead. And it just really hit me like a lightning bolt. And I went, yeah, this is exactly how we approach procurement almost all the time. And we just keep doing the same thing. And we sit and we whinge and we complain about the suppliers, and we whinge and complain about the contracts not delivering exactly what we want. And we didn't include this. And at no point do we, and I'm not talking about we as in just procurement people, I'm talking about we, the wider we, public sector. At no point do we stop and go, maybe we should do things a little bit differently, think about things a little bit differently. Again, this is not just procurement teams that are impacted by this. This is everybody. If you are not in procurement, by the way, contract management, you are in procurement now. If you're not in procurement, you're impacted by this. You're impacted by this. Please don't be thinking that you're not. You are. This impacts everybody. We all have to have a mindset shift. I'm optimistic, given the people I've spoken to over the course of last year. We're far further ahead in that mindset shift in procurement than other stakeholders, but we need everybody else to get there. So let's spend time doing that. What's one of the mindset shifts right within this point? Delivering value for money, delivering economic growth. Point 3. Contracting authorities should, and I will paraphrase, contracting authorities should be defining challenges to solve rather than solutions to buy. That for me was a mic drop moment, because it's entirely, if I'm being honest, it's entirely how I've kind of viewed procurement should be done for a long time, and it's why I call us solutioneers, because we have the ability to connect the dots in places that other people can't. We shouldn't be sitting there and saying, I want to go out and buy this. We should be sitting there and saying, here is what our problem is. How do we resolve it? And part of that might be that conversation around insourcing versus outsourcing. Part of that might be separating it into lots, and these lots we insource and these lots we outsource, and we break them down, and maybe there's lots of different organisations that have got different optimal solutions that will give us the outcome. Maybe as part of that, when we're thinking about the contract management of it, actually it's worth investing a little more in contract management for that piece, because actually we'll get a far better outcome out of it. All of this is so interconnected, it can seem quite complex, but we shouldn't be thinking of these things in isolation. And we should be thinking about, what's the problem that needs solving? What is the outcome that we need to get to? What's the outcome that we need to get to? And then what's the journey to get there? And that might be saying to suppliers, look, here's the outcome of where we need to get to. Here's the budget that we have available. You tell us how you're going to do it. And when we're thinking about things like how we'll evaluate that, do you know what? We're going to take price off the table, because reality is 95% of what we procure, I'm probably wildly over exaggerating, but a lot of what we procure is recurring. We know what we're spending every year. So rather than us worrying about trying to do a race to the bottom 30% on price, which just does race to the bottom, because inevitably the lowest priced or the second to lowest priced will win. Inevitably. I dare anybody to say, no, the highest priced won on a 70-30 split. It never happens. So are we really getting the best value? Another different rant for a different day. But I think that we do need to think about all of these things holistically, and it's why I say all roads lead back to procurement planning, including consideration of the National Procurement Policy Statement on what it means and how we can apply this practically. What are the considerations within here that we can apply? How do we, maybe when we're looking at pricing, maybe we do incorporate it as a scored element, and maybe we score the return on investment for the social value. What money is it going to save elsewhere? Let's do it that way instead. And it requires more thinking and more complexity and more specialists. And it should, because we're spending taxpayers' money. We should not be so laissez-faire as to just keep doing what we always did, because we'll always get what we always got. And we're better than that, Solutioneers. We are a better community. Anyway, on that note, I'm very curious to see what you guys think. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Poke holes, I love it. I love it when I'm challenged. So yeah, like poke holes in everything I've got to say. Feel free to comment on the YouTube. If you want to, you can comment on my LinkedIn. That's absolutely fine as well. You can get in touch directly. I will put all of my contact details actually into the YouTube video below, or you can click through onto LinkedIn and find me on there. All forms of communication are valid, except for pigeon mail, because I'm worried the dog might eat the pigeon. What do you think? Let me know. Let your colleagues know. Really interested to hear your thoughts on this, and can't wait to see you all next week. Happy solutioneering.